And good morning. You've reached Profiles and Perspectives with Darswell Rogers, and I'm your host, Darswell Rogers. I brought together three of the august senior members of our community from the point of view of public policy. And that's really what I want to talk about. I want to talk about public policy. I want to think about it in terms of what I would call whole board thinking. We are a community that is on the rise. We are a community that has a lot of potential. And what we have frequently found is that we don't get the level of cooperation and understanding and appreciation that I think would ideally accelerate the potential. And so my guest this morning, I've got former Representative Elmer Floyd. Good morning, Elmer. You probably got to bring that mic closer to you than where you are right now. You've got former County Commissioner Billy R. King. Good morning, and former City Council person and PWC Commissioner, Mr. Wade Fowler.
Good morning.
And so I think, and we were in the middle of a conversation, but I like to think whole boards. I want to look like across the community for a second. This is a community, and I've traveled around. I've said that the people in this community are as smart as anywhere in the world I've ever been. We have never seemed to effectively, on a consistent basis, said how are we going to work collaboratively together to move this community forward in a very meaningful way. And Brother King, since I see you contemplating rubbing your hands, let me start with you. What has been the challenge, and what can we do today through our elected representatives or otherwise to get a more coherent, comprehensive strategy for moving the community forward faster than it's doing now?
Mr. Rogers, I'm very pleased to be here. I'm retired now, so I don't get up too early in the morning.
So I appreciate you showing it here so early.
It's getting a little cool outside, so that's another challenge. I'm very pleased to be here with you. I did serve on the Board of County Commissioners, and the most of that time it was very eventful. And I think one of the things that we as a community can do a better job of maybe we can come together in doing this, is in planning. Well, I'm not sure we plan together as a community. I was trying to think this morning. I served on the Board of County Commissioners, perhaps the Board of Education or the City Council or some other boards could do more planning together.
Can you think of an occasion when all the policy-making boards in the community came together to talk about planning?
Yeah, we've done that, not on a consistent basis, but at least I think at the staff level and sometimes at the policy-making level, we've come together. Okay. But I think we may need to do more of that.
Okay. Representative Floyd, I know you have a state perspective as well as a local perspective, so let me just ask the same question. What has been the challenge, and what do you believe could be effective in moving us more rapidly forward in terms of planning and strategically repositioning our community?
A lot of prayer. A lot of prayer. A lot of praying to get the city, the county, and the state to work together. Now, as my distinguished friend mentioned, is that they do have conversation. That they do have this conversation. As an example, the county built a call center. The city passed a bond issue for $30+ million to build a call center. With technology, one line is going to connect the two centers together at a $33 million price tag. And so just by working together, the taxpayer could have possibly saved X, whatever X is, less than $33 million. So when you look at it from a state perspective, the county is supposed to provide all of the services from a state perspective.
What services?
All services, okay? But the municipality sets themselves up and say, I can serve better than what the county is providing. So you have cities spring up like you did Eastover, that they come and say, I can do this service. Hope me, abandon God, myself, and so on and therefore. So it had to be a coming together of those minds to see what can we do to improve the quality of life.
So can I stop you? I want to stop for a second because you're making a distinction that I don't think I ever really focused on before. The fact that there are cities inside counties is kind of like incidental. The county is a creature of the state, and it was set up and structured to provide all the services within its jurisdiction. And unless somebody comes along and says, hey, I can do it better, I want to form a municipality, the county just does everything. Is that the basic point you're making?
The county is to provide all services, because it's when you look at the whole state of North Carolina, there's 100 counties. 100 counties.
Yep.
It's just like Health and Human Services, the Sheriff Department. If you look at Mecklenburg County, Mecklenburg had the Mecklenburg County Police Department, you know.
I got you. So the fact that the city, you could argue that the city is in some way redundant to what the county is providing. Are you going to that level?
Not all services, like Health and Human Services. Okay, that's one thing.
Okay.
Education is another thing.
It's a county thing, clearly.
Is a county thing. When you start talking about the Department of Social Services, when you start talking about those kinds of things, but the city, like its police department, its trash or sanitation, and all those kinds of things, that's what they say to those persons, that we can provide this kind of services to you. Better. And quicker and faster.
Okay. Okay, so prayer is your fundamental solution, and thank you for the education, because I had not really thought about it that way. And then, Mr. Fowler, how do we accelerate this thing? Well, first, no one's really said what's been the real challenge in the past. Maybe you can think about that more. And then, what would you, in terms of the future?
Well, I think, first of all, I think the situation is that you have people that have their own, if you will, their own turf. That it becomes, this is our place, this is your place, and I want all the credit for something good that happens in my place, you know? I mean, really, it's kind of, that's where the big fight over this thing about the call center was who was going to control it. Who cares? Just if it works well, you know? If the county controlled it and the city contributed something, because, you know, 2/3 of this county's residents live in the city of Fayetteville. So who cares who controls it? I mean, really, it becomes an ego thing almost, really, like, you know, well, this is ours, and that's ours. We ran into that with the city and the county, and honestly, that also was what came down, you know, a lot of it comes down to dollars. That's where the city kept trying to annex more people in and keep their per capita division of the sales tax coming, which started bleeding the county out of money. This starts a fight. So to me, as far as looking forward,
yes.
I mean, the county and municipal structures were designed in a time where you didn't have the technology we have. It took hours sometimes to get across the county because of, you know, the method of transportation back in the days. I mean, we live in the 21st century. Why do we have two separate governments? Why do we have a county and a city government? Why don't we have one metropolitan government that works in the confines of the city? You structure your property tax situation such that the areas that get the most services have the highest, you know, property tax. Those that get the lowest services have the lowest rate of property tax. You have one unified government that can now make a strategic plan that makes sense for the entire community, as opposed to, well, you know, people in the city, well, the county, all they're responsible for, all they ever think about is the unincorporated parts of the county, because, you know, we got all these cities, you know, that do their thing. No, we're all together. And the other thing about it is, that then makes the public utility you have, I pulled my hair out a lot when I was a commissioner about how it was so hard to try to plan strategically, because you got these two different groups that wanted to do two different things, and we're trying to figure out what's the best place. You know, for me, I sat down with it when I was the chair. I sat down with our economic development coordinator here and said, look, let us know where's the most likely place we can have industry want to come in. And if we're going to have the industry come in, what kind of infrastructure they're going to need, and let's plan on putting that in those areas that's most likely, so we don't have to say, well, it's coming. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of hard to do that when it crosses boundaries and the organizations don't want to work together. So for me, as far as looking to the future, I really believe in a unified government for the county. that, which would take in all the metropolitan areas. It would take in Fayetteville, take in Spring Lake, take in all this. And you have a unified government that can actually make a plan that's good for everybody. And most people figure, when it came to economic development, it was like the city would be thinking, well, if it goes out in the county wins. If it comes in the city, we win. And the county saying, if it goes in the city wins and we lose. And in Spring Lake, if it goes to Spring Lake or if it goes here, no, if we get development anywhere in the county of Cumberland, it benefits everybody in the county, whether you live in the city, whether you live in Spring Lake, Hope Mills, or you live in the unincorporated areas. But we don't think like that. And that's the way we need to think.
Well, what's fascinating is when you said that, my thought went to the infamous chicken plant, which ended up down in Robeson County. And I haven't looked at any numbers, but I'm betting that there's people that live in Cumberland County that have gone down and earning income, and it's not in the county at all. So I think that where this may be, and I'm talking to former County Commissioner Billy R. King, former state legislator Elmer Floyd, and former city council and PwC Commissioner Wade Fowler, is what is the purpose of government? Because I think, I want to continue to stay out, okay? We talked about we've gotten down into some weeds, but we need to keep this at a whole board conversation. I'm really wanting to say, how do we get the organizations to say that my primary objective is the betterment of my citizens holistically? So, I mean, is that what is the purpose of government? What's government? I'm going to base it because you need a clear purpose. And if you have a clear purpose, then I think you have an opportunity to be able to break down some silos and some preconceived ideas. If you can say, listen, this is why we exist. This is why I get elected. Billy, you gotta, I mean, where is
Government is about the business of providing services to the community. We provided a good environment to live in, to work in, raise a family. That's what government is about.
So if government...
We have a hospital
Yeah.
that provides health care. We have the education system. We have a hospital, I mentioned hospital, Board of Education. We have schools.
Law
we have
enforcement?
Law enforcement. All of that is for the community, are the kinds of services that government provides.
So you don't need multiple versions of the same service. I think that's a little bit of where Elmer was.
We can get into a debate about that. We can get into a
Which is
debate
fair.
about
And you want to have that debate.
who can provide the services the best, the most efficient, the closest to which is customer friendly.
Mm-hmm.
How can we do this? How can we have a good environment, a clean air, clean water? How can we do that at a local, state, federal level?
And let me say, guys, let's have a conversation. Don't wait for me to ask questions. If you got an opinion, please just jump in here. Don't wait for me. My reaction, and I tend to use the school system because I understand it very clearly in terms of what I think the purpose of the school system should be. And I would say that the purpose of the school system should be to maximize the educational opportunities of every student.
Surely.
But I don't think that's so school system maximize the educational opportunities of every student. So if I'm talking about municipal government.
That's an excellent point, Mr. Rogers. Here in North Carolina, we have a lawsuit in the last 10 years that hasn't been resolved yet. The Leandro case, every child should get a quality education, whether you live in a poor county or a rich county. Everyone should get an equal education opportunity. Is that happening?
Clearly, it's not happening.
So whose fault is it?
Well, at the moment, my basic focus is on, it's the educational system's fault. But I think that there's a bunch of structures that are in place that impede it from happening. And we just kind of, if you break it down to if anyone is doing an activity that is impeding maximizing the educational potential of the student, you need to be looking at, well, maybe that should be changed. But what should it be changed to? You could easily say you should tear something down, but let's talk about what you should put in place. You have a comment, Wade?
Well, yeah, I'm just going to say I had a different viewpoint of,
Well, good.
of the role of government.
Okay.
I don't believe government is around to provide services. I mean, there may be some that you're going to provide, but I think the role of government, in the first and foremost role of government is for public safety, particularly on the local level. I think that is the number one important thing, is to
police.
keep your citizens safe. And then the other thing is to structure an arrangement where commerce can operate as freely as possible to give as many people as possible an opportunity to succeed. I think too often in the impetus to give services, they put a lot of restrictions on getting things done. If you talk to people about how hard it is to do business in Fayetteville sometimes, how to get something going because of all these different rules and regulations and stuff that goes in there. I think there needs to be a balance. Obviously, you can't let everything go pell-mell, but that's part of public safety, is in protection. But in reality, this is the libertarian in me coming out, is that you need to allow people to be free to pursue their opportunities and their dreams. And I think too often we spend it trying to keep them from it and tell them that the only way they can achieve what they want to achieve is if we provide that service for them. And I think that stifles people. And when it comes to education, you're talking to a guy who was a homeschooler, so don't,
Right.
I know all of the things that are available out there for people to use to learn. And I think that the biggest thing we can do is get out of kids' ways of having a desire to learn. Most people think children don't want to learn. They do. They want to learn. And honestly, if you think about how, and this goes whether, and I'm not talking about public versus private schooling, okay? That one's better than the other here. What I'm talking about is the concept of how the kids learn. If you think about how children learn before they go to school, they're coming to mom and dad or anybody and saying, why, how, what, they're asking the questions. And then all of a sudden they get in and put in a classroom with everybody that's all the same age, and they're told, now sit there and be quiet and let me tell you what you need to know. And I think that stifles the desire to learn in a lot of kids.
I think it's fair.
And so I think one of the things we can do is look at more ways to broaden the opportunities kids have to learn, rather than going to an old pedagogical model that's been used for centuries that, frankly, if you look before we went to public education, if you look at the percentage of the population that could read and write, that were literate, it was higher before we did that.
Before public education.
Yeah, well, basically before you put people in, and this is the way we're going to teach you, they learn. So I don't know, I look for more opportunities for free access to opportunity as opposed to access to government services. That's just...
Elmer, your view of government, does it match up with either Wade's or Billy's, or do you have a completely different take on it?
Let's look at the state again.
Right.
The state provide services, or whatever you want to call it.
Hey, Elmer, what I want to do, I want to take a break here at the bottom of the hour.
Okay.
But I want to come back to you on the other side with your thought in terms of your view on government. We're going to take a break right now. Come back. You listen to Profiles and Perspectives with Darswell Rogers. And welcome back to the second half hour of Profiles and Perspectives. I'm your host, Darswell Rogers. I've got three people that have spent significant parts of their career here in public policy in our community. I've got former County Commissioner Billy R. King. I've got former State Representative Elmer Floyd and former City Council Person and PWC Commissioner Wade Fowler. Before we left for the break, we had talked about what the purpose of government was. Billy said it was to provide services. I'm summarizing. Wade says, well, it's really just to provide public safety, and the rest of it is to get out of the way of business and entrepreneurs to be successful. I'm paraphrasing, and Elmer, I had turned to you and said, well, what's your take on government?
Well, as Wade mentioned, and I said earlier, he cannot do what he wants to do as it relates to allowing private industry to develop, I'm going to use the word at will, or the way that they are. They're going to have government You know, because if you look at Randolph County and Guilford County, they're building got a mega site of 1,800 acres that's going to have a battery factory there that's going to employ 1,700. Now, can that be done without government providing the service? That means
and the
the
service
water and the
means
sewer.
water, sewer, and roads.
Yeah, the government. And that goes along with the incentive package that the government provide to attract those industries to come there, so in that those around there within the 50-mile radius can improve the quality of life of those communities. And as BR mentioned earlier about the Leandro case, that case is 23 years old. Cumberland County was one of the parties to that suit.
And the Leandro case is the notion that there should be equal education for all.
Every child should have a sound, basic education.
Okay.
The argument is that whether you live in a poor county or a rich county, your son or daughter should get the same quality of education.
Okay, or at least the basic, the baseline of education. Okay.
But now, when you look at education as a whole, the state of North Carolina is based on tiers 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Cumberland County is based on 1. That means that the two of y'all are in the 40th poorest county in the state of North Carolina.
Right.
So you have to do something to attract industry. And back to the budget, you all want to make sure that we lock them up. Where are they going? Okay, they're going to send them to the state. So a portion of the state budget that goes to what? To operate our penal system, our roads, okay? So our court system. So, you know, it's a complex mechanism that's in place that has a tune this year of $30 billion. Next year, $31 billion. When I first went to the General Assembly, it was like $14 billion.
Wow.
So we'll say now it has tripled when our population had grown to provide us 1 U.S. senator. So our population grew by about 900,000 that are coming to North Carolina because of what we provide. And that's too because of industries that's coming here because we have a lower corporate tax base.
So I want to bring this back out to, okay, last time I looked, we are the 20th poorest county in the state.
40th. They rank 40, and 20.
Understood. We're in the lower tier. We're in the bottom tier, but I thought our ranking inside that lower 40 was 20.
It doesn't make any difference. You're in the bottom 40.
Okay, so I don't need to debate that one. We're in the lower 40. I don't want to be in the lower 40 anymore. I want to grow. We've got the talent. How do we come together? I mean, that's my fundamental issue. The fiefdoms or the whatever or the whoever, that's the core question here.
Back earlier, you know, that was when BR was a real young man on the County Board of Commissioners, and Wade, you had just came here. The federal government was throwing money at communities to provide water. Throwing money. Our community say we want to remain a tobacco road state because tobacco was the crop. So we bypassed that infrastructure. But Harnett County, Sampson County, and Robertson County took the money. And we are buying water from those communities. Okay? Now, having said that, you know, I don't think that most trucking companies are self-insured like Food Line and Walmart and all those. You talk about a $500,000 truck. They want them trucks on a highway, 2-lane highway to carry their goods and service to the market. We only have one go north and south on 95 to get the goods and service within a 200-mile radius of where their warehouse is. So we don't have the infrastructure.
So you're talking about the past.
And we don't have gas.
And I want to talk about where do we go from here. I hear you loud and clear about what we did not do, and I have talked about it, and we have talked about it, but here we are today. We still have some of the smartest, most capable, we're the youngest community in the state. We have good things happening.
We have a good workforce. Fayetteville Tech can train.
Oh, the best.
They can train the people to do the job. We can do it.
Can we have a community-wide 25-year vision? You know, when I think about one of the things I talk about is the Research Triangle Park. That's across 3 counties. And they figured out, and we need to go back and study it. They're across 3 counties. They said, you know what, we got a different, we want to do something special. And we're just trying to do it in 1 county.
Well, I go back to the discussion I had about taking one of the things, and I think the biggest catalyst for what we can do as far as what you're talking about there in a vision and driving first is determine what kind of industry you'd like to have here. I mean, just any kind of industry may not be the best thing, okay? First of all, that's it. And anytime you're making a plan for something that's coming in the future, however we want to be, you got to count the cost. Okay, it's just like anytime you start developing areas, and I'll take in, for example, Murchison Road. If you start getting a lot of development on there because of the traffic in there, it is going to change the nature of the community. If you look at Shaw Heights, if you're going to do something with Shaw Heights, that's going to displace people that right now are in an area that they can, quote, afford, but now they're going to have to find another place they can afford if that becomes. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it because of that, but that's just some of the cost figuring you do as you lay out your plan for where you want to go.
Right.
And do I want heavy industry in here that's going to be, you know, possibly polluting the air and doing all that stuff, or what kind of stuff do I want? What do I have the skill to happen? And then you use the one engine that I think that you have that can decide that, and what you do here in planning for that, and this is where you're talking about providing the infrastructure, Elmer, is PwC is the one end is, you know, we can't really control Duke Power, okay? They've got a part of this area. And I can tell you right now, I know we can't control
Lumbee River
or South River, because when we were trying to get, back when I was on the board and we were trying to get stuff out at the industrial park, I was trying to get them to say, let PwC provide out there, because we've already got 3-phase power, we've already got the fiber out there, we can set all that stuff up. And man, we'd had that park full.
But
the point is, we figure out where we want to go and then say, let's figure out what if we're going to bring this stuff in, what kind of stuff is that going to need? I remember when I was on city council, I went up to a conference on, you know, for municipalities up in Boston, at a big municipal gathering. And sitting there listening to people up in Boston, and there was a certain area of Boston that they decided that they wanted to turn kind of into their high-tech region. And they said, okay, who works in high tech? What's the demographics of them? What kind of stuff? And then polled those people and said, what would you like to see in an area that would draw you to come here? And it was stuff like bike paths. Believe it or not, one of them was good pizza parlors. I mean,
right.
And so they said, okay, let's structure this stuff out here. And guess what? It grew. So that's the kind of thing I think we need to do, but we can't do it if we're competing with each other and saying, well, I want it to be in the city of Fayetteville. Well, no, I want it to be out here in the county, or I want it to be over in Spring Lake. This is where we need to get together and say, if somebody gets it here, we all win.
So I'm back to this whole question around strategic, having a common vision and a common purpose across the community. When you tell the story about us not being able to extend out to the industrial park, PwC could have extended it out. I believe if the city, the county, EDC, and the state was speaking with one voice, either a South River, if that was a South River, would have had to salute, or we'd have said we're going to let PwC. There would have been some political pressure around making it happen. But because we weren't speaking with one community voice, a lot of things don't happen. And I think that's just what's really important here.
The reason I brought that up is out around Gastonia, they put in a park. I think it was roughly the same time that we started working on the one here in Cumberland County.
Yeah.
And they had the capacity through their manager to get it all set up. And they had 3-phase power, they had fiber, they had everything that was necessary there. Their park's getting full. I mean, I think, as a matter of fact, I think it's completely full. And ours right now still has just Campbell soup in it. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about.
Yeah. Comments from you, gentlemen?
I don't know what the answer is. I'll say I don't know.
Let me talking to the mic, Billy.
Doswell, I don't know what the answer is. I remember while I was on the Board of County Commissioners, when the project looked at Cumberland County, all of us on both the city council and the county commissioners, we were together. I mean, if anyone was looking at coming, but Many, many times we got a second or third look, but then went someplace else. I don't know what the holdup was.
Well, let me ask you, this is a question I asked you yesterday. Looking back at it today, and I really want to talk forward, but I'm looking backward. Can you envision a scenario whereby the county and the city would have come together and said, you know what? We need to have one strategy instead of the county doing a strategy and the city doing a strategy. We need to have one.
I think we had one. I think we've had one. And we just haven't been lucky to get chosen.
Okay,
We've gotten looked at many, many times.
well, you're talking about for industry. I'm talking
Yes.
about more broadly. I mean, like for instance, take the homeless situation, right?
Okay.
In the county, the county is responsible for homelessness, is what I understand. That's if you will, a county responsibility. But the city has spent an inordinate amount of time talking about homelessness because most of the homeless people are in the city.
Okay.
So I don't think that if just taking out one, I don't see where there's been a comprehensive strategy across all the municipalities.
That's a good example.
On how do you address this question? Everybody's looking at it in their own way.
Well, I'm not sure. I've been off the commission for a while now.
I understand.
I'm not sure where we are today in that whole area.
Well, I was using it as an example more so than asking you to come up with any real solutions.
Yeah.
But I don't know, Elmer, what is your sage perspective here?
Well, when we really look at it, it is the 4 members of the Cumberland County delegation to use its influence in assisting government to reach whatever goals that they have. As an example, John Sokol, which is a Republican, was able to build the Civil War Museum. The money for the Civil War Museum came from John Sokol and his efforts in the General Assembly. And quite naturally, he was voted out. Kurt, Senator Ville, he helped grow Fayetteville State along with myself and others. What happened? You vote him out. Floyd did the same thing. What happened? You vote him out. And that is because some people say is that this is who I want to serve me, not the people that elected. Okay? This is the person that I want to serve me.
Me, and to serve me. When you say me, who is the me?
I'm talking about the executive branch, and
Okay.
I'll let you narrow it down.
Okay, all right.
Once you go inside the executive branch.
Yeah, I honestly, because you're sitting here with 3 people, and it's interesting. Billy made a comment when we were off air saying, it's interesting discussion. We can figure out who's Democrat and who's Republican. And yeah, I mean, there's certain philosophies there. But I think what really happens is, if you do work across the aisle, it seems like the biggest thing for you is to have fealty to your party, as opposed to what necessarily is a good thing to happen. It goes back to the same thing about who gets credit.
Right.
Oh, that happened, so they're going to get credit because they were in charge. Or this happened. It doesn't matter whether it was good or not. It was who gets credit for it. Mm-hmm. And if the wrong people get credit for it, and it looks like you helped them get credit for it, okay, you're not one of us. You're out of here now. Instead of looking at it saying, man, that was a good thing that happened. I'm glad it worked out. Everybody keeps talking about wanting bipartisanship, wanting to see, people work together. And then you work together and they say, oh, hell, we don't want you anymore.
So you say we really don't want bipartisanship?
No.
I think the citizens do.
I think the citizens do, but I don't think the parties do.
Well, when you look at it, when you look at it, I think that every person that's running for office, okay, if at the top level it's the president, at the state level, it's the governors, okay? I think that what helps the party, that if these individuals would stay out of that process, for instance, the executive branch have already endorsed Stein. Morgan is running, okay? So when you look at going into the November election, those persons that support Morgan is going to stay at home, okay? Because there's the division. I mean, when you look at a minority candidate, which I'm one, and you know that Morgan was going to run for governor. You knew that. But yet still you endorsed Stein. But at the end, you want the African-American Democrat to be on board when you have already shown discrimination.
I got you.
So it's divide the party. And back to the economic development, sometimes it takes government to jumpstart economic development.
Absolutely.
The Board of Election, Board of Education said they want to build a school. Went from 99 million to 159 million. What best to jumpstart economic development in Shaw Heights? I mean, it had the land. PwC owned most of it. That's there. So sometimes don't keep telling me that you're going to develop Murchison Road when you get a grant. It's always based on when I get the dollars from the federal government, then I'm going to develop Murchison Road. That's what you hear. Why don't government step in? You built a homeless shelter, but then again, that was off government money too. I'm sorry.
Well, my broad take here is that everything we've generally speaking talked about have been, I'm going to call them transactional versus strategic. Here's an idea. Let's figure out how to do Shaw Heights. Okay, I'm going to work on that. Hey, let's do this economic development project over here because somebody brought some opportunity for us. Let's think about how to do that. Instead of saying, listen, 25 years from now, I have a set of goals. I want to move our economic prosperity in this county from A to B. I want our capital investment to be Z. I want, to put out some aspirational objectives. And then everybody said, well, how do I get there? But we're being reactive to what the marketplace is offering. Elmer's point about Shaw Heights was an attempt to be proactive. He says, let's bring Shaw Heights into the city now when there's the opportunity. And everybody's like, well, no, because that's going to cost me money. That's going to be expensive. They're looking at the dollars. So you're operating from a position of scarcity versus an position of abundance, right? And if you make good decisions, if you make good strategic decisions, capital follows great ideas. So all I can say, and we've got 6 minutes left here. I'd love to come back to my top theme, but let me stop for a second.
Well, you're talking about capital likes to flow to the area of good ideas, but capital is a lot like money and electricity. It flows to the area of least resistance.
That's right.
So the more resistance you put up, the less you're going to have flow. And you've got to find that balance. I mean, you don't want to overload a line, but at the same point. But that's also part of what I was talking about. If you figure out what you want it to look like, then you do your transactional steps, which is how do I put the infrastructure where I want it to be? What do I do here to make that happen?
What do you want it to look like?
And I think, but I will tell you again, we keep saying that, and I would disagree with you somewhat, Elmer, on your point that only government can do the infrastructure. I think that's not true. Because if you look at what government uses, it uses private capital invested people to come and do it. The government doesn't own, the paving company. It doesn't own these things. So industry will do what it needs to have what it needs to make itself work. I mean, it's got the impetus to do that. So I still think the biggest part is getting a lot of the impediments out of the way, but you need to know what you want to look at, and you need to count the cost. Is it going to bring me the quality, the kind of life that I want? And that quality of life is more than just how much money I have. It's what the surroundings around me are like. What do I have to deal with to live? There are a lot of people who would rather live. I mean, you got a lot of people who live out in the middle of nowhere because they don't want the traffic. They don't want all this other stuff, everything else. To them, that's quality, and they'll do it with less money. But the point is, and the other thing too is, don't tie everything to if I've got more money, it's going to make this happen. The issue is, what kind of creative way am I to do this? And the reason I bring that up is because we go back to education and the Leandro and about mostly the way it is, we should all have the same amount of money to spend on our students. I will tell you right now, homeschoolers spend an awful lot less on education than anybody else does, and they get great results. The issue is putting your focus and your heart into the kids.
It's mine. Elmer, you were going to... Yeah.
I know you say that the paving company and whatnot, they build a road, but they build a road based off public dollars.
Oh, I'm not arguing that. I'm not arguing that point.
You see, and that's what, just like I mentioned before about Toyota. Toyota can build its own plant without $1 from the state of North Carolina. And the same thing BR mentioned, when they come in, we look good. But they have a hedge hunter, whatever you want to call them. Okay. They know what Cumberland County is going to offer, what's the maximum, and what this community over here is going to offer them. Okay. Jumpstart, something different. There are going to be 194,000 truck drivers shortage going into 2050. They can ship it there. There's no problem. We don't have to build a facility here. We can truck it in. And so, but we look at incentives. Until our community start looking at that and coming together, we talk about education. You have 115 school districts here in the state of North Carolina. And Nash County and Wilson County is going to be divided, and then you're going to have 116 school systems in the state that you're going to have to fund. So it's a matter of us sitting down collectively to find out what we want to be. Right now, the only thing we are a service industry.
I mean, what do you want to be
That's
when
all.
you
That's all.
what do you want to be when you grow up? It's a question that Billy, you're retired, and I would still ask you the same question. What do you want to be when you grow up? There's this notion of being aspirational. There's this notion of having vision. There's this notion of recognizing the fact that you can't do it by yourself. There's this notion that being fearful or operating in a position or a perspective of lack is just losing for your constituents. It's losing for the community. And Elmer, you brought up the comment about John Zoka being taken out after he brought capital and brought the Civil War History Center. You and Kirk, there being attacks against you all when you're doing the right thing for your constituents. But the party is more interested in their perpetuation than anything else. We are at the end of the hour. As a matter of fact, I'm about to say, Billy, if you got 20 seconds, then I'm going to have to wrap it down. You got something you want to say?
I've enjoyed being here.
Well, thank you. I want to thank Billy R. King, Elmer Floyd, and Wade Fowler for having joined in.
I just think it's great that you can have people with different ideas sit down and enjoy having conversation with each other and trying to work things out and not get mad at each other. I think it's wonderful.
And not get mad at each other. These are three people that I respect immensely and enjoy spending time with each one of them respectively. So with that, everyone have an outstanding weekend. You listen to Profiles and Perspectives with Darswell Rogers. Hi, this is Darswell Rogers, the host of Profiles and Perspectives. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share it. Also, offer your comments below, including profiles you'd like to see and perspectives you'd like for us to consider. Thank you.